Hey there berries, welcome to another support tier list, this time it being 11.6. As before in the last few tier lists that we've done, we're going to be going through the patch notes from Mark Getter's Twitter, and then I actually did some experimentation on the PBE practice tool in regarding to Ludens, but I'll talk about that more once we get to that. And then we'll be going through the tier list. Just for a quick overview, if you want to skip over these patch notes, which I don't actually advise for this one, but if you don't have the time, the general gist is lifesteal is generally going down, and also they're nerfing some forms of magic penetration. This is going to affect mainly top lane AD carries in terms of the healing, and also will be affecting some of the AP mages, but some good and some bad. So as you can see straight from the top, let's work our way from the top and make our way down. The amount of healing in the game is being reduced. The Ravenous Hunter rune is getting kind of gutted, so you have to get stacks with that now. A lot of AD carries were taking this rune in the bot lane, and actually generally every champion was generally taking this. Omnivamp basically means that everything that you do, auto attacks and spells, are going to give you healing back. So a lot of champions were benefiting from that. Fleet work, that's kind of a more rare rune, but Jhin sometimes kind of picks that up. That healing has been reduced, but only on AP ratio, so nothing really like impacting in terms of like bot lane there in terms of the fleet work healing. Blade of the Rune King's being nerfed. That was a popular pick with a lot of the hypercarry picks. So like Vayne and things like that will now get less healing. Sterix as well has also been nerfed. That was an item that's taken by top lane bruisers mainly, and some junglers. So they're now going to be a little bit more squishier. Stride Breaker, another kind of like top lane kind of favorite, being nerfed. Seeker's Arm Guard, that's the component on the way to Zhonya's. The armor in that has been nerfed. That will be a slight hit to Morgana, but nothing that crazy. That's mainly going to affect mid laners more than anything. And the other one probably to mention is the Void Staff. The cost is going up on that by 200, so that's going to impact the AP mages like Brad and Zyra. It's going to cost a little bit more gold now to get the magic penetration you need to get through some of the tanks. Item buffs, we've got a Shieldbow's buff coming through, but honestly I don't think it's like that great. 15 seconds knocked off the active, which is the movement speed buff. Nothing really that great there, honestly. It's a welcome buff, but honestly the Shieldbow's needs buffing more than that. Ludens we're going to go back to in a second because it's quite in depth of what I want to talk about here, but Ludens was buffed. Sunfire has been buffed, but please do not still take it on some of the tanks. It's primarily a top lane / maybe tank jungle buff. Rabadon's death cap is cheaper. That's to kind of offset the Void Staff as well. So once again would impact the AP mages. AP mages supports like Zyra and Brand generally didn't take death cap anyway, so it's not really that big of a change anyway. Item adjustments that you need to be aware of. The most important two are the Shieldbow and the Liandry's change. The Shieldbow, the AD carries basically that are picking the Shieldbow up are going to be receiving less healing. But when the shield does proc, if I move my head out of the way, my giant head, then you can see the values there. So when the shield does proc, the AD carry will get 25 to 50% attack speed when it procs. And also the shield is increased. So you're going to need to be aware of that and potentially save your ignite maybe for when the shield has actually popped, because they'll then get more attack speed, which means more healing as well, and just generally more damage. So maybe save your exhaust as well if they have a Shieldbow and it's about to pop or it has popped, because they're going to be doing a lot more damage during that time. So it's a nice little buff for Shieldbow. So yeah, during that shield proc, they're going to be a lot more scary. Now we have the next one, the last one here I really want to talk about until we talk about Ludens, is the Liandry. So Liandry's Ludens have been effectively changed. Liandry's is now an item that you basically would pick it up on Zyra and Brand and any other AP supports, because, you know, Liandry's is a pretty nice item overall. They're removing the magic penetration now to deal up to 12% bonus magic damage based on the enemy's opponent's bonus health, apparently capped at 1250 HP for now. So you'll be only taking this item if there are multiple tanks on the enemy team. Even if there's just one, I wouldn't even warrant taking this. So if you're going to take Liandry's, you're effectively going to be doing less damage to squishy champions, because generally they won't have much or any bonus HP. So Liandry's got hit quite hard in my opinion. So on Zyra, unless there are like multiple high health targets on the enemy team, you definitely will not be picking up your Liandry's. Instead, you'll be looking towards the Ludens. As I mentioned, I did some PBE testing, and there's some interesting outcomes that I've discovered from this. So Luden's Tempest on the PBE, you can get the maximum is 6 procs of Ludens per ability on a champion. So for example, if you how can we go through this without overcomplicating things? So for example, if you're playing Zyra and you do a Q attack and it hits one champion, you're going to get 0.5 seconds off the Luden's charge. If you hit 5, then you're going to get 5 sets of 0.5, which is 2.5 seconds off your Luden's. Luden's proc is 10 seconds, but we can get that down lower with Cosmic Insight and the item cooldown reduction rune. I think it's Ingenious Hunter in the Domination tree. And that will affect Luden's. So Cosmic Insight plus about 5 stacks of Ingenious Hunter gives you around about 31% item cooldown reduction. So you can get that down to a 7-second like flat rate, and then you also got a flat rate coming off of the Ludens. So in terms of spells, dots are like king here. It does not work off Demonic Embrace. I tried that. So if you buy a Demonic Embrace and you do one ability, the Demonic Embrace procs will not reduce the cooldown of Ludens. Okay, so it has to be from the base ability itself. Brand's passive works against this, and interestingly, I think from my testing, it seems like when you do 3 spells on Brand on a champion, it will the AoE circle that is produced from Blaze seems to count as a separate spell itself. So, and that will do 3 ticks of damage after the explosion, so you can get an extra 1.5 seconds off your Ludens off of every explosion. So for example, in the Zyra case, her plants also count as separate entities. So a plant can hit 6 times and it will knock off 3 seconds cooldown. If you do 2 plants, then effectively you can get, you know, 2 lots of 6 procs off. So you can get that down to 6 seconds knocked off your Ludens by spawning 2 plants that are attacking champions. And as I mentioned before, like the Brand Blaze does count. So if you throw out a Q, you're gonna probably say if your Ludens is ready, you throw out a Q on Brand. It will proc Ludens and start putting it on cooldown. Every Blaze tick after that continues to go off will reduce it by 0.5. It's roughly about 3 ticks. So if you do another ability after that, that fresh ability will refresh the Blaze. But it won't like have a separate entity to the previous Blaze. So if you try and let your first spell do as many ticks as possible before then doing your next one, then it will count as a fresh Blaze. However, if you do Q and then like an E instantly afterwards, you'll only get like 0.5 seconds from the Blaze from the Q, and then you'll get like a few more ticks from the next Blaze from the E. It will like refresh the Blaze effectively, and wipe out the Q's Blaze. I really hope that makes sense. It's very, very complicated and virtually like impossible to kind of explain. But basically what you need to know is Brand is very good now with Luden's Tempest, and you're going to get lots of procs throughout the entire game. And I highly recommend some form of Cosmic Insight build with Ingenious Hunter. So you can get into like 31% kind of cooldown. And then you also have Dark Harvest as well that you can play off. So you're going to have more chances of proccing Dark Harvest because you're going to be doing Luden AoE procs onto lots of different people. So you can see how like Brand is going to be, in theory, very, very strong this patch coming. I would consider picking up a Liandry's on Brand if there were still high bonus health targets on the enemy team, like 2 big tanks. But otherwise, I'd be sticking towards the Ludens. I really hope that I explained like the mechanics of Ludens now. It's very, very difficult to explain, but the gist is if your spell has a dot affected to it or something like a passive like Brand, then Ludens is going to be extremely good for you. Like another like example would be like Malzahar's E dot. If Malzahar was support viable, if you apply that over to an enemy champion, then each instance of tick damage is going to reduce the cooldown of Ludens. Another champion that can maybe like do this potentially okay is Morgana, as her W will proc a lot of times, especially if the person's under binding. So you're going to get the guaranteed basically the 6 cap proc per W. Whether or not anyone's going to be doing Luden's Morgana support is another question, but you can kind of see whether the direction of Luden's is going. So the more instances of damage you can get from one ability, the better. I hope you got it. I'm sorry, I tried to explain it as best as I could. Going into the individual champion buffs and nerfs as well, we've got a few jungle nerfs. Hecarim's getting a big nerf on his Q, which is good to see. Karthus Q damage as well. His clear is going to be affected a little bit by that and later on in the game. No actual support has been nerfed for this one or AD carries. Got a few champion buffs there as well. The big one is going to be the Pike one. So let me hide my fat head again for this one. So the Pike one is the huge one. So the Phantom Undertow, the E stun is going to go from 15 seconds, and every time you put a point into it now, it's going to go down by 1 second flat. So as the game progresses on, like every time you put a point in, it will be like an extra like 0.7 seconds or so off the cooldown off your E, which is still pretty good, much welcome. 15 seconds base is an incredibly long time, so pushing it down to 11 is going to help Pike a lot and get them around in those fights. So yeah, Pike is definitely having a very clear buff over the last couple of patches, so expect to see more Pikes and Brands in your games. I know it's gonna horrify a few of you guys because I know you guys don't like playing against AP mages a lot of the time. I know sometimes you like ban Brand and stuff a lot, but yeah, just expect to see some of those more deadly supports being played in your games. Now moving on to the actual tier list itself. So if we have a look at tier 5 is exactly the same. I'm not going to go spend too much time on the tier list. There aren't too many changes, but there are some key ones I want to highlight, and you can probably guess which ones they already are since, we talked about the items already. Going up to tier 4 there's no particular champions I want to talk about there. I will probably say, if you do really want to play a Misfortune support, by the way, the Ludens on her E could actually be potentially quite good. But there isn't really anyone. I mean, maybe the Teemo Mushroom and his passive as well on the E could potentially be a bit more useful. But on the whole, still generally wouldn't recommend these champions. And actually, while we're down here in tier 5, there was a build that was being suggested, which I haven't tried yet, and I do not necessarily recommend it even for like Plat minus. But there was a, what was it? Cosmic Drive Vagar first item build being suggested. Apparently Mickey tried it. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be potentially any good. This is someone who has played a lot of Veigar support back in like season 9, season 8, and bit of season 10. Like Glacial Augment was key on him with like Twin Shadows and GLP, and now you only got like the crappy Everfrost, so don't recommend Veigar at the moment, but I will try and give it a little go, the Cosmic Drive Veigar, and give you guys an update. But at the moment I haven't had time to test it, and honestly it's not something that you could probably do in low ELO. Going back up to the tier 4, once again, no real changes there. Nothing really changed here to help these champions out at all from the current position that they're in. Going up to tier 3, we have an interesting one with the Maokai. Maokai was a Liandry's taker. Liandry's on Maokai won't be that good. You could potentially do Ludens, as long as the saplings proc from the brush, you're going to get a couple of hits from that to lower down the Luden's cooldown. So Maokai, he should be okay-ish still, but his mythic item basically kind of got nerfed quite a bit, so ill-advised at the moment until we know more information regarding that. No real changes there. I think like stuff like Rel here is really good if you're in high ELO and maybe duo. The same with Senna in terms of like the funnel format, but everyone else there, honestly, nothing really too crazy. Even the Seraphine as well has had a dramatic drop in win rate now since her nerfs, and you know, Riot have stopped nerfing her this patch because of that. So Seraphine is still okay to play if you really like playing her, but like nothing too out there and crazy now. Moving up to tier 2, this is where some of the changes come quite interesting. So I decided to keep the Zyra into tier 2. I was considering potentially dropping her down because of the Liandry's change, but the Ludens does work off the W plant, so I want to give her a chance this patch to see kind of where she is with the Ludens. So I'm generally going Ludens on Zyra unless there are a lot of tanks on the enemy team. Nami, I did drop down from tier 1 into tier 2 just because there's a couple of champions up in tier 1 now that you can probably guess are better than her now. She's still a very good enchanter, but now there's just like better champion options, so she has finally been knocked out of tier 1 because of some of those champions. Luden's Bard could potentially be possible if you can hit multiple meeps that are AoE onto multiple champions. You'd lower the cooldown a little bit, but I don't think that would be the right build. I think Locket would probably still be the right one. And we did briefly talk about the Morgana Ludens, which would be an interesting test, honestly. I would be very interested to see how that works out, but for now, tier 2, I mean, as a normal enchanter, kind of she's generally pretty fine anyway, and AP Morgana I would generally steer away anyway. The only AP item that I would be picking up would be like the Zhonya's to get a better ultimate, but it would be very interesting to see some potential of Ludens or Morgana. And moving up to the tier 1, you could probably have already guessed a few of those champions anyway, the Brand and the Pike that we're talking about. But yeah, back to the Brand and the Ludens and the Ingenious Hunter, I think there is very high potential. Getting your Ludens to a 7-second cooldown if you can get maximum stacks on Ingenious Hunter combined with the Cosmic Insight, plus generally being able to proc the Ludens fairly easy. In a big team fight, I think he could quite easily get 2 procs of Ludens off in the first maybe about 5 seconds of a fight. I think he could probably knock that off like very quickly. And then you'd have the Dark Harvest as well, stacks going off as well. So lots of fireworks and explosions with Ludens and fire and Dark Harvest popping off. So should be pretty good. And you know, you still have the Liandry's option as well against those tanks. So once again, you'll be doing 12% more damage to those massive tanks. You know, and Brand's already doing a lot of damage to max health targets. So Brand is going to be the absolute tank killer. For sure. So if there are like a Cho'Gath mid has been quite popular lately, and you know, generally if that is the case, then there's going to be a high health target in the top lane or in the jungle. So then that would be an absolute perfect situation to be picking Brand. Pike we also talked about, you know, that E buff is absolutely huge. The passive buff for support Pike was pretty big as well. Pike is definitely going to get way more playtime this patch. I'm going to have to kind of keep an eye on him and see how he does overall, because basically there weren't that many Pyke players until these changes started coming in. He was mainly played mid, so bringing him back into the support role is pretty exciting. He's a very unique champion. I really recently did a Pyke support guide for him on the YouTube, so make sure you have a little look at that if you want to pick up Pyke. It is a difficult champion to play. His item pool is completely different to the other champions, but that guide will put you in the right direction. And, you know, the usual suspects there of Leona is by far the strongest tank support in the game. Thresh is super good if you're Plat Plus. Janna is probably the ultimate safe pick here. If you ever wanted to pick a safe pick champion, then Janna is probably the answer. She can roam, she can disengage, she can harass in the laning phase. She's basically got all the tools that you would need to carry in solo queue in terms of an enchanter perspective. And then you have Yuumi. Yuumi, you just need one person in your team to get ahead, and you just attach them, and then you just ruin their day. So yeah, nothing really unusual about the first four there, but the Pyke and the Brand definitely spice up this tier list more than it has done in the last few patches. So I hope this helped. I did my best to explain the Luden's change. I do apologize if I messed up on the explanation up a little bit, but the general theme is if your spells can hit multiple champions, whether it's AoE, whether it has like a little dot on the damage over time on the spell itself to hit the enemy multiple times, then Luden's is looking like the appropriate option. And just you need to think a little bit more now about when to pick Liandry's. You can't just pick it every single time on like the Zyra or the Brand. You're definitely going to need to think about how much health the enemy is going to be having into that mid and late game. So make sure you think about a little bit more about your AP options now. And Shred is still pretty garbage, so genuinely don't pick that up. But I hope this tier list helps you. Good luck in 11.6. If you have any questions, feel free to ask over at twitch.tv/Bizzleberry. I know there was a lot of excitement about the coaching video that I uploaded on Monday. I will probably be doing more live coaching sessions. I'll bring out more information on discord.gg/Bizzleberry on the announcements channel. If you are interested more on that series, or if you are interested in coaching yourself, then you know, keep an eye on that channel. So yeah, no promises, but I would like to do the coaching more if possible, as you guys seem to have enjoyed it. Other than that, stay very awesome, good luck this season, and look out for another tier list in 2 weeks time. Take care guys, bye bye.